I was born 1911, Chickasaw County, Piedmont Plantations. My mama was a maid. My grandmama was a house slave. I done raised 17 kids in my life. Looking after white babies, that's what I do. You is kind, you is smart, you is important.
Generalizations and stereotypes of African Americans and their culture have evolved within American society dating back to the colonial years of settlement, particularly after slavery became a racial institution that was inheritable. Black women are facing a lack of positive representation in the media and have been portrayed in various degrading roles over the years. Negative images of black women appear twice as frequently as positive images. This is as a result of the constant depiction of black women in degrading stereotypes portrayed by the media. All these stereotypes are not mere representations because it is the representation that sticks with the audience, and over time they shape their social reality. Black women made their on-screen debuts playing mammies and caretakers. The focus of this essay is on the representation of mammy stereotype, which has been forced on the African American women in film from the 1920s through to the 21st century. The earliest use of the word mammy in reference to enslaved women caring for white children occurs in 1810 in a travel narrative about the American South. It is the hybrid of the words ma'am and mama. Sexual harassment caused black women to take on the desexualized role of the mammy to try and get away from the horrible sexual acts committed against them. This cycle of abuse happened continuously and frequently during slavery, and as a result, in many cases, forced slave women to create a sense of non-sexuality. Slave girls and women willfully made themselves the least appealing, unattractive, and undesirable to avoid the heartache of rape, resulting in illegitimate children by their own master and then never seeing those children again. This explains the birth of the stereotypical mammy figure. From slavery through the Jim Crow era, the mammy image served the political, social, and economic interests of mainstream white America. During slavery, the mammy caricature was posited as proof that blacks, in this case black women, were contented, even happy, as slaves. Her wide grin, hearty laughter, and loyal servitude were offered as evidence of the supposed humanity of the institution of slavery. Mammy found life on vaudeville stages, in novels, in plays, and finally, in films and on television. White men wearing black face makeup did vaudeville skits as Sambos, mammies, and other anti-black stereotypes. The standard for mammy depictions was offered by Harriet Stowe's 1852 book, Uncle Tom's Cabin. The book's mammy, Aunt Chloe, is described in this way. The appearance and behavior of Mammy are significant in her functionality because she had to be non-threatening to her mistress so as not to entice the master, have no sexual relationships of her own that might compromise her devotion to the master's household, and most importantly, she needed to be one-dimensional and eager to please. Overweight, docile, and asexual, she maintains the role and archetype of good mother to white children, as well as the perfect slave. Slave-era mammy. This mammy stereotype existed from the slavery era until the 1950s D.W. Griffith's movie, The Birth of a Nation, based on Thomas Dixon's racist novel, The Klansman, set the standard for cinematic technical innovation. It also set the standard for cinematic anti-black images. The earlier Mammy performances were ever preoccupied with Mammy being fiercely loyal to her white family that she was often willing to risk her life to defend them. Movie culture in the 1930s became a dominant culture for many Americans, providing new values and social ideals to replace shattered old traditions. Guerrero in his book uses the word escapism to describe a reason to consume the Mammy image. Before the advent of film, the myth and narrative of Mammy served to uphold and support the binary opposition of white womanhood against black womanhood. However, after Mammy appears in film, the myth acted as an agent to soothe the American public and establish social order.
You have your own car, your own house. My own house? You gonna send me away, Miss B? I can't live with you? Oh, honey child, please don't send me away. Don't do that to me. Don't you want your own house? No. How am I going to take care of you and Miss Jessie if I ain't here?
Bogle harkens back to the way Mammy is made out to be protector of the white family to which she is assigned, and she did not want to be free. This is a direct acknowledgement of the enslaved Mammy, who was required to care for her white slave masters at the detriment of her own family. Here we see how the role of the loyal and fearless protector is an essential element to the Mammy stereotype. According to Donald Bogle, like the old-style mammies, they ran not simply a household, but a universe unto itself. Often, they were out to clean up the ghetto of drug pushers, protecting the black herd and home from corrupt infiltrators. Dobson and Greer represented the black woman as protector, nurturer, communal mother surrogate. This, of course, is an attribute of the mammy stereotype. They were often perceived as being exotic sex objects, yet with a twist. Although men manhandled them, they also took liberties with men, at times using them as playful, comic toys. Even when black women were the central characters of the movies, they were still portrayed as sexually aggressive, often deviants. Their characters resembled those of the male superheroes. They were physically attractive and aggressive rebels, willing and able to gain revenge against corrupt officials, drug dealers, and violent criminals. These films gave black women a sense of control and sense of justice over their own lives and sexuality that they did not have during slavery times. However, they were still saddled with the responsibility of cleaning up and protecting the community from evil. The drag mammy is a representation of the mammy done by male actors. Martin Lawrence as Big Mama in Big Mama's House, Tyler Perry as Medea in the Medea series, and Eddie Murphy as Rasputia in Norbit. These men take up the behavior, appearance, and narrative of the mammy by wearing fat bodysuits, blonde or grey wigs, and flower print dresses, blouses, and pants.
Everybody calls me Big Mama.
The legacy of slavery is ever so apparent when Big Mama interviews for a nanny position with 3 white women. She points out the ways in which she is not a threat to the employer's marriage and is the right choice to care for the children because of her non-threatening, asexual, reliable, and worldly nature that couldn't be found in white women, in order to show how Big Mama herself is perfect to care for the white children in the family. These are the traditional functions and characteristics of the mammy as a slave. Tyler Perry's Medea is the darker side to the pre-emancipation mammy. There is no greater participating element to the mammy stereotype in the 21st century than that of effective surrogate mother, yet ineffective actual mother. Tyler Perry's Medea directly counters the loyal to white families mammy narrative and is indicative of not just black audience resisting such slavery propaganda. This performance is indicative of a black audience tired of the jolly, submissive, and loyal narrative of mammy. Murphy's Rasputia is perceived as a more sinister mammy than the traditional loyal servants that originated following the end of slavery. This particular mammy is taken from the days of post-slavery and is infused with the ideologies of the welfare queen. Rasputia is lazy, angry, resentful, bossy, loud-mouthed, and unattractive. It is this portrayed aggressive nature that deems mammy unfit for companionship and confirms the assumption that mammy would be better off alone, which is another key element to the mammy stereotype. She is always single, whether widowed, never married, or run out on, and the potential for long-lasting love is never addressed nor recognized as a possibility. The angry black woman is tart-tongued and emasculating, one hand on a hip and the other pointing and jabbing, or arms akimbo, violently and rhythmically rocking her head, mocking African-American men for offenses ranging from being unemployed to sexually pursuing white women. She is a shrill nagger with irrational states of anger and indignation, and is often mean-spirited and abusive. Although African-American men are her primary targets, she has venom for anyone who insults or disrespects her. They are depicted as women who were mostly responsible for their families and children from absentee or irresponsible husbands or fathers, or women who were lonely and unlovable because of their own attitude and anger. Today, this is one of the dominant portrayals of black women. They are characterized as a sassy woman, labeled as a bitch, and she can be violent at any time. The aggressive nature that deems Mammy unfit for companionship and confirms the assumption that Mammy would be better off alone, which is another key element to the Mammy stereotype. Thus far, Mammy in the 21st century doesn't look all that different from the day Nancy Green first entered the World's Fair as Aunt Jemima. Equipped with a title, an elaborate get-up, and an ulterior motive to serve the greater good, Mammy has done little to evolve over the years. Only a handful of black actresses have won Academy Awards, and most won because they brought depth and complexity to otherwise one-dimensional stereotypical roles. These stereotypes are widely accepted to the extent that it defines all African Americans and blacks around the world. If African American women are still portrayed and stigmatized over and over again in these same bad images, it only increases the negative image of them, not change it or make it better.
Tired of the stereotypes black girls have fallen into because of American mentality. Oh, but not half as tired as Ella Baker, Diane Nash, Septima Poinsett Clark. I am sick and tired of being sick and